Hello my friends, it's another wonderful day in the Philippines. In this video I'm talking about how at 70 years old and after 3 years in the Philippines, I've become a better person.
In bad times, I know I'll be okay.
My vision has changed a lot since I got here, and in a good way. I mean, I see things differently today as a result of the changes that I've been through living here in the province, living in the Philippines. I see things differently. When I first got here, I would look and I would see poverty everywhere. Just all that would run through my mind is, oh, the poverty, the suffering, and so on. What I completely missed that I did not see until I'd been here for probably about 6 months, it really sunk into me that I wasn't seeing all the smiles. So each of those houses where I'd see these people sitting or done it or whatever they're doing, I didn't see the smiles. Today, I don't see the poverty so much. Today, I see the smiles. I see the family unit. Let me give you a little bit of an example. When I moved here, there was a little boy next door, probably about 8 years old, and he was one of the happiest kids I've ever met. He didn't have a PlayStation. He didn't have any of those kind of things. His toys were far and few between, but he was the happiest kid that I'd ever seen. You know what? Somebody forgot to tell him that he was poor, but he had an awesome, loving family. It's hard to come to the Philippines and see all of the poverty that seems to be everywhere without thinking that it's just a miserable existence. That is not the case. I remember growing up and you see a girl and she's all dressed sharp, has that personality and all those kinds of things. She has that air about her where she came from a fairly well-to-do upper middle-class family. Now, I've met some absolutely stunning, beautiful girls here, and in the back of my mind or subconsciously, I just assumed that they were exactly like the girl I just mentioned. But when you go by their house, you're just absolutely shocked at the level of poverty that she's grown up in. Now, one of the main things that I'm getting to here is that poverty has little or nothing to do with happiness or the kind of person that you can turn out to be. Now, when I came from America, I didn't get here on a winning streak, and things were not going all that well. I literally had to come here because there was no place else to go. My income equaled a crappy little studio in San Diego before I had food, before my phone, before my cars, before bills, before anything. I literally had explored every option, and when it came to living in a motorhome or a trailer, those got so expensive to even park them somewhere. This was the only option where I felt I could live a life with dignity. My experiences far exceeded my expectations. How often does that happen? I was a nervous wreck. It's embarrassing just to admit this in a video, but I don't know how else to explain life here. But living in the province and witnessing all these things, eventually I began to realize how lucky I really was. And I'm here, a single guy, and my income is 4 to 6 times that of a family of 4. Talk about feeling grateful. I did an interview with a guy recently, and he's just a great guy, does great interviews. Anyway, he said, oh, you seem so passionate about all this. Well, I am, and these are the reasons that I'm trying to explain. It's easy to explain that you can rent this kind of house for this kind of money. It's easy to explain that you can live on food that is maybe less expensive, maybe better quality than what you find in America because it's basically organic. This is another one of those videos where I'm trying to explain something that can't be seen. You have to feel it. So I'm giving you examples on how it's been for me. In America, I felt sad, I'd feel happy, I'd feel excited, I'd feel bored, I'd feel all these things. But it wasn't till I came here that actually the feeling of joy is how I feel most of the time. I rarely felt just plain joy when I was there. Last night I was watching TV on my 55-inch brand new TV that I can afford to pay cash here. I was just feeling joy. It was having a cheat day on my dad, I was having some chocolate, etc., and I was remembering how it used to be when I'd be sitting there watching YouTube about the Philippines and I couldn't wait to go. If I was wishing away all the days until this or that happened, I would have wished away months out of my life. Today, that rarely happens. When I talk about being a better person, that's just part of it, because I'm better to me. Today when I reminisce, it's usually just about the last few years, because my life here is just so much different than it was before. But one thing's for sure is, when I'm reminiscing about today, I'm rarely ever thinking about having made a poor decision. If I hadn't invested in that bank, if I hadn't invested in that property, I'd have more money today, blah, blah, blah. I don't think about those things. I'm on average Social Security, being grateful for being here, being grateful for every day. That kind of negative thinking just no longer enters my mind. And that's a decision I'm glad that I made. My life here and the cost of living and the way things have turned out to be, it's a lot easier to be me today. I have a different mindset. I have a whole lot less stress. I don't need Xanax for a few more hours of inner peace today. I've just found a life here today where I'm not so stressed out all the time, and I have the ability to live that way because of the lower cost of living, because of the people that are here, because of the country culture. Now, I'm sure if I was a psychiatrist, I could explain this a whole lot better. Now, for so many years, I was so full of stress that when I got here, it didn't go away right away, the day that I moved here. But I realize all the time, as I look back over the last couple of months, the previous couple of months, and so on, I am just less and less and less stressed than I was a few months ago, 6 months ago, or a year ago. Now, a lot of people are saying, oh, well, you're not living in reality. Well, no, I am living in reality. It's just a different reality here, and I've adapted to that, and that's why I've become a better person. I will live longer having a lot less stress. I will live longer being genuinely happy. I will live longer having feelings of joy. And that is why I feel so much today that I am a better person. I've talked a lot about not running out and renting a big house and buying a bunch of big TVs and things just because you can. Now, living in this alternative reality, a year from now, none of that stuff may mean much to you, and you don't like the fact that you're stuck with these big, heavy payments for the next 5 years or however long that lease was. Now, maybe you wanted a new Mustang all your life, and when you get to the Philippines, by God, you're going to buy yourself a brand new Mustang. Well, after about a year running around on these roads, you might have wished you'd bought yourself a Ford Ranger instead. It's just an example of material possessions gone wrong. Chances are the tattoo you chose when you got here will be a lot different a year from now. The Philippines has its way of changing a person. If you're like me, pretty much most of our lives we were of the opinion that when we retire, we're going to have money. It's going to be a nice little life. We can sit back, we can relax, and maybe do some traveling. Today, it's more like, if we're lucky, we just feel content that we got a roof over our head, just to have a place to hunker down until our next check gets here. We got 3 square meals a day. We're not going to go hungry. We can pay our bills. That's how I would have been in San Diego. Last time I checked, there was around 10 million American retirees living solely on their Social Security. Now, if you're living in New York, California, some of those other places, living on Social Security is not an option. Here, on average Social Security income, you can still take your wife up to Baguio for a romantic getaway, and when you come home, she walks in the door and there's a brand new 55-inch TV hanging on the wall that you were able to pay cash for just with this month's income. The days of the woulda, shoulda, coulda are over. I should have won the lottery too, but I didn't. So here I am, and I'm in this reality that allows me to be the kind of person that I'm trying to explain to you today, where I can live life on life's terms. Now, the reason that I started this channel was because my experiences in the province has been a bit different than a lot of other people who landed in a city somewhere. They didn't necessarily get immersed into the full-on Philippine culture when they got here. I did, and I've noticed the changes. These changes are applicable no matter where you land. Sharing with you how my life is since I've been here, because I didn't and I haven't really heard of it described in any other videos. And that's the reason I started the channel, is to cover things that aren't covered. I don't talk about relationships. I don't talk about dating. I don't talk a lot about those things because everybody else does. Now, it's been suggested to me that I do talk about those things because that's what gets all the views and the subscribers. Now, sometime I will, and I will if and when I feel my experiences are different than what gets talked about there every day on every other channel. And that's how you get paid when you have a YouTube channel. But I never make a video unless I'm really passionate about something. And that's the topic of this video today. Well, my friends, that's pretty much what I've got here for you today. So please like, subscribe, share with someone who may be interested in coming to the Philippines, and also ring the bell, and that will give you notification when I have future videos coming out.
I feel so